I started to dream about walking in some woods. I was barefoot, and I could feel the cold and wet grass on my feet as I walked. I didn't recognize the woods from anything I had seen before, and yet I felt somehow safe and aware of what was going on around me, as if it was near where I lived. Old, tall trees that blotted out the moon high above, thick woods and then open plains, and then more woods on the other side of that clearing. Then it opened again, and I could see that the moon was high overhead and bright. I could see more clearly than on the brightest of days. I could smell everything too, the scents mixing and separating as I picked them up. But there were no crickets out tonight, no croaking frogs, and not a single owl made a sound that night, because this night was filled with too much evil, and everything normal was suspended, given the night off somehow, or maybe it was hiding too, because everything about this darkness screamed that it wasn't going to be a normal night. The woods ahead were dark, but I continued on. I saw a rabbit run across the trail ahead and wanted to follow it to see where it lived. Seems really stupid now, but it was a strong compulsion I was fighting to follow it. My hunter-gatherer instincts were kicking in, I guess. Then, high above me, I heard two squirrels in the tree, about 75 feet above me, and I started to wonder what they were excited about when I saw a trail of blood on the ground ahead of me. At first, it was just a few drops here and there, but after a few feet, it seemed to really flow, bright red splotches all over the brush and covering the grass along the trail. Then I heard a low growl from about 10 feet ahead of me. I stopped cold in my tracks and I tried to see where it came from, but it seemed to be everywhere at once. My senses heightened. I felt unafraid, as if I had been through this before and knew what was going to happen, what was behind the next bend in the path, even what was hiding up there in the darkness. Hearing a twig snap in the clearing ahead, I paused for a moment before I was ready and stepped forward, a little slower this time. I felt like I was in real danger, but I could not resist going forward, all my senses at full alert. Then I heard it again. It was such a low, deep growl this time that I thought it must be something else. Nothing I'd ever read about or heard about could make that kind of noise. The growl then became stronger and more insistent, making me want to run the other way, but I could now see where the blood came from. Lying there and dying was a 16-point buck, still trying to get up and run as it was dying, its eyes wild and frantic as it showed its fear. But the thing killing it looked almost human. It was about 6 foot tall and lean, like he was someone that ran a lot. Though he was naked, he was all covered with hair. Thick, extremely coarse hair, and beyond that, I thought I was really losing my mind because I thought his legs bent the same as canine legs. I could only watch as he rose and turned towards me, furious at me for interrupting his meal, blood dripping down the front of his body as he looked at me. He opened and closed his mouth twice with a loud snap and then turned his face full towards me. As it got closer, I saw that it was not human at all, but some kind of wolf, though it had some human expression on its face. It snarled at me then, and I could see bits of raw meat stuck in its teeth. Blood matted the hair on its snout and ran down its chest, and it had the reddest eyes. They seemed as if they were bleeding just to stay moist. As it lunged towards me, I felt a rage build inside of me. Instead of fear, I charged at him too, and my hands went out like claws as we both closed in for the kill. I heard another primeval growl just at that moment as I jumped and almost turned, thinking another animal must have closed in behind me, but I knew if I took my eyes off him, it would be a fatal mistake. We started fighting, clawing and circling, reaching for each other angrily, trying to find an opening as we kept going around each other. Clawing and scratching at each other, we were kicking up a lot of dust around us, but just trying to get an edge so the real damage could be done. Then he tried to bite my neck, coming in close and snapping his jaw at me as he pushed at my chest. I threw him back enough that I could hit him in the throat hard, and as he fell, I knew I heard him when I saw him reach up to his neck. Then I moved in closer to hit him again, but he wasn't hurt too badly and he moved quickly, swiping at my arm and drawing blood as he moved away. I howled in pain and moved forward again, trying to catch him off guard while he moved. For the first time, I saw fear in his eyes. Then he tripped on a root in the dark and I pounced on him, using my weight to hold him down as I ripped into his throat and shook off bits of it with my teeth. I kept digging deep into him, trying to burrow deeper until he finally stopped struggling. Then I howled at the moon in my rage. It was so primitive, I stood there for a minute to catch my breath, but also to make sure that he didn't move again. I fell back a bit to catch my breath and then saw some water there on the other side of him. Dragging myself there, I was going to wash my face when I saw my own reflection staring back at me from the dark water. I thought he was standing behind me again, ready to kill me. Quickly I turned back and saw that he was still not moving. His body lay where our struggle had ended, and I couldn't see his face because I had chewed and clawed most of it away, but I could see a large amount of blood spreading out on the floor beneath him. I looked down at the water again and the face of a wolf was reflected back at me. I leaned back and howled at the moon again, this time with even more rage. That's when I woke up, most of my body aching and stiff, as if I had been in a war, or at least a major battle. Everything hurt, every bone, every fiber of my being. and I also had the tangy taste of blood strong in my mouth. As I tried to rise out of bed, there was a coarse black hair stuck in my teeth, and as I pulled it out, it had bits of what looked like raw flesh on the end.